Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Live Code Tuesdays. As always, my name is Sohan Maheshwar. I'm a lead dev advocate at Fermion. And today we're going to be talking about spinkube and Rancher Desktop. We have Divya Mohan with us for the first time on our show. Divya is a friend of Fermion, I'd say. Divya, we've met at so many conferences and interacted at like multiple KubeCons and whatnot. So thanks for joining the show.
Thank you for having me here. And I think it's a very good omen that two of my finicky whiskers just like jumped right before we started the stream behind me. So I am really excited to get this show started because this has been a project that's been in the works for quite some time. And I'm really excited to talk about it a little bit in the context of Ranch Desktop.
Awesome. So, Divya, actually, I almost forgot, but do you want to do a quick intro of who you are and what you do? I know the cats in the background distracted you.
No, I had slides. So I was like, I will read off slides, but sure, I can do a quick intro of myself. I am Divya Mohan, and I am a principal technology advocate. I hope I got my title right. I'm a principal technology advocate at SUSE, and I'm also a Kubernetes docs maintainer, and in the cloud native ecosystem, you can find me griping about docs and community. Like Sohan said, I've been I've been at way too many KubeCons recently, bumping into the Fermion folks and irritating them at their booth. So that's how we know each other. I think in addition to doing stuff in the cloud native ecosystem, I'm also actively involved in the WebAssembly ecosystem, and I'm trying to drive community efforts around the WebAssembly ecosystem along with Karen and a bunch of others as well. And yeah, that's pretty much me because I tend to ramble and I do not want to.
Okay, we'll get to the other things. But for folks just joining the stream for the first time, we stream every week on this channel at this time, essentially, where we talk about something related to the world of WebAssembly. Divya, you should know one rule for our Fermion stream is that if a pet walks across the camera, you have to feature it on camera. So that's the only rule.
Okay, that's the new rule.
Yeah.
My two cats are willing to come on, but currently they're fighting one another. So
Okay.
might
Might make for an entertaining stream. So, all right, folks. So today we're going to talk about spinkube and how you can go about installing that on Rancher Desktop. Divya, of course, works for SUSE, so we can get started. Divya, do you want to maybe set some context and tell us a little bit about Rancher Desktop, what it does, and all of that?
Oh yeah, I have like I said, I have a whole set of slides ready.
Let's do it.
I did not want to introduce myself, but if I can start sharing, that would be great. Like, let me hit share there, and maybe you can pull that up. Yes, hopefully Matt's sharing feature
Yep.
really helps. Are we able to see the screen now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So essentially, today is going to be us talking about running spinkube on Rancher Desktop. And since I'm assuming that a lot of the folks are already in the WebAssembly ecosystem, and at least the ones who are tuning in, I am going to come from it from the point of, the Rancher Desktop side of things. So again, not going to introduce myself. This was my introductory slide, just so you know that I did have this.
I screwed that one up. I'm sorry.
I was not lying. so, uh, so today's agenda is basically, firstly, talking about what Rancher Desktop is, because many of y'all might not have the context, and even if you do, we have some exciting new features which I would like to talk about a little bit. I also want to talk about what makes WebAssembly interesting, not from a personal point of view, because I know that it would be like preaching to the choir here. So I'm not talking about it from a personal point of view, but also from the point of view of people who are working in the cloud native space and who want to get involved, and specifically the Rancher Desktop team and the other people involved in this project. Next up, we will see two demos. Now, one of them is recorded on YouTube, and I'm not going to do that all over again. I'll just be playing that video. But the second one is a live demo, and here's hoping that everything goes well, because I've not had a lot of success with live demos. Something or the other tends to go wrong. Um, I should have not said that because now I'm putting it out into the universe.
No, that's all live demos. I think we've all been there.
So once we do that, there's a lot of technologies underpinning those demos, even though it might look extremely simple. So we're gonna look at what we exactly did, and how we made that magic happen. What were the exact things that made that magic happen? And also, there's been a lot of talk about why would I use WebAssembly along with containers and this thing. And specifically, even when SpinCube was announced, a lot of folks asked us as to why and where would you use this. And maybe what I say might strike a chord, maybe it won't. Up for discussion after that. And again, from the perspective of Rancher Desktop, I'll talk about the future roadmap as well. So that's the agenda for today. I like documenting things again, because I tend to ramble a lot. So that's why the agenda slide again. So, what is Rancher Desktop? For folks who've been in the cloud native ecosystem or who have at least played around with containers, a lot of you might be familiar with Docker Desktop, right? It's how I got started. K3D actually was how I got started with Kubernetes. And Docker Desktop was the one that I used on my, I do not know how old machine. And Docker Desktop is essentially a container management tool, with a bunch of features. Rancher Desktop is very similar to that, but again, there are differences that set us apart, and I'll get to that in a bit. But essentially, it helps to manage both containers as well as Kubernetes on your local workstation, irrespective of what operating system it runs and what architecture it runs on. So we have support for Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. It's free and open source, as you know, it always has been, and it's designed for the individual user, of course, but also there are several enterprises that use it. So now we come to the differentiating factors. Primarily speaking, one of it is that there's a bunch of bundled utilities that, as far as I know, Docker Desktop doesn't have them. One of them is the kubectl command line tool. Then you also have Helm packaged along with it, and a K3s cluster that comes inbuilt. So this is very helpful for people who are actually looking to get started um, with developing on Kubernetes and not learning the mechanism of setting up Kubernetes per se. Not everyone likes breaking things, is what I've discovered. Uh, and this sort of helps when you're trying to develop things, or develop apps for Kubernetes, containerize them and just get done with your job rather than setting up a cluster and stuff like that. So you have a default cluster that you can work with. And we obviously have our own CLI tool and REST API that we package along with the GUI app. But essentially, what I'm going to talk about today is the WASM integration that was introduced in the latest version, just before KubeCon, version 1.13. So what makes WebAssembly so interesting to people who run containerized workloads is that we've forever been optimizing for uh, you know different architectures and different platforms, and we're forever finding things that can actually work on all of these seamlessly, without us having to rewrite everything all over again. So that's obviously one of the things. But also, as an industry, I'm pretty sure all of us have started moving towards, um, or rather at least have seen the move towards edge and edge architectures, which makes it absolutely essential for different architectures to be taken into consideration. And I'm not talking about just your AMD and ARM architectures, because edge devices run way more than that. So given that, this is obviously a very interesting technology to take into consideration. And it also helps that your binary sizes are very low when it comes to WebAssembly, right? So that's another thing. And anyone who's ever worked with JVM or even a server knows how long it can take to start up. I personally know that I could probably go make a coffee and come back, and that JVM would probably still be starting up if it's a big app. So WebAssembly modules are comparatively, because of the smaller size, they are easier to start up, or they are at least faster to start up. And the fundamental unit of WebAssembly, that is the module, is actually just a secure sandbox, meaning that you cannot really access anything from outside of that module. And anyone who's tuning in and who's been in the ecosystem doesn't need this explained to, or doesn't need me explaining it to them. But essentially, this is very useful given the recent state of events that have transpired around cybersecurity. So these are a few things that make WebAssembly an interesting technology for those who are already in the container space. Um, but that does not mean we are checking out WebAssembly modules and thinking that, oh, they are our future, while leaving aside all the things that we've built upon. Of course, WebAssembly is one of those technologies that we are continuing to optimize given the current situation. But there's still a lot of use of containers. Just as when containers were introduced, there was still a lot of use of virtual machines. I can attest to that fact because at my previous employers, we were using a heavy proportion of virtual machines and mainframes. And you wouldn't really believe that Kubernetes had actually reached 1.xx version. So essentially, just as there was a use case for VMs, there will be a use case for containers, and there is a use case for WebAssembly. So there might be use cases where they all work in synergy, but there are also different disparate use cases that they can work off of. So when you talk about running WebAssembly on Rancher Desktop, you're not spared the actual process of creating or writing your application. That is still very much a problem. You have to do that unless we make ChatGPT clever enough to write it for you, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh,
We
but
could
I
try that on a future stream, perhaps. Get
or
ChatGPT to write like the entire app for us. Yeah.
No, I don't think it works out. I've tried. Doesn't really work out well. And I mean, compiling it and packaging it and pushing the artifact into a registry. Well, we are going to see if that's possible or if that's a simple thing to do, given the technology we are talking about. And you can basically run the artifact that you push into a registry either as an independent module on a runtime or as a container. But today we are going to focus on running it as a container, especially on Kubernetes. Again, we're not talking about just isolated containers, we're talking about containers on Kubernetes. So why are there two different approaches, and why do we support them both? Because it kind of seems stupid that you want to give everything to everyone. The reason is precisely that I think we sort of stick to the open source ethos of being opinionated and not prescriptive. I think that's what open source is really built on. We That's also the reason we have Mobi and Containerd out of the box for you. You can select which runtime you want, and Spin is one of the first frameworks that we are actually sort of supporting. There is a plan in the roadmap to support other runtimes and incorporate them into Rancher Desktop as and when the technology matures. So approaches and use cases differ. It's just I think in line with our open source ethos to actually have these two different ways of handling things. But like I said before, we are focusing on Kubernetes today because of the spinkube project. And even with deploying wasm on Kubernetes, aside from just using spinkube, we can still use manifests and kubectl. Um, as there will be a lot of memes after this, but using manifests and kubectl is not necessarily a bad idea if you're starting out with stuff. But as and when you actually want to automate and improve your productivity as a developer, and you do not want to really worry about um, minor things like this and take on the overhead, you would prefer some sort of automation. So we're going to look at both of these approaches. Now, the
Mhm.
first demo is the one that I was talking about, that was released on YouTube earlier on. So I'm just going to go through the highlights of the video. I'm just too lazy to actually demo it live, is the real reason.
Okay.
And I'm too scared to actually uh, screw up anything before the live demo. I have a real fear of screwing up the environment before the demo, so that's also one of the reasons. But
All good. Yeah.
essentially, let's just go through this again. Let's see if this works. Okay, it directly goes to the YouTube video. Great. It did not
Also, I
work this
noticed,
time.
Divya, that you said kubectl. We have a big debate on our live streams every week almost, especially when
Yeah.
we talk about Kubernetes, about what is the right way to, or what is the favored way to sort of pronounce it. Do you do kubectl? Do you do kubectl? Our CTO Radu actually goes all out and says kube control, I think, which I think was like a third option. So yeah, cool. Plus one to
I
the kubectl gang.
I am kubectl all the way. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I cannot imagine it being cube control or cube curtain. For some
Yeah.
reason, it doesn't sit well in my brains. But
Okay.
to each their own. Again,
Yeah.
I can't. I am not very prescriptive about how you talk about stuff as long as you get the tech right.
Yeah, sure, sure.
So
Andrew seems to agree with you. Hey, Andrew. Hey, Nuno as well. Nuno, thanks for joining the stream. Love the stuff that you've written about WASM and the WASM
yeah,
ecosystem. Yeah. So thanks for joining in. We have Vamshi as well. Hey, Vamshi, another regular on our stream, and of course Bunny is here as well, making dad jokes about cats and Kubernetes in the comments. Always welcome.
yeah, cats and Kubernetes go really well together. I'm pretty sure pretty much everyone I know in the Kubernetes community likes cats or has cats. There's not like a single person I know who doesn't. So if you are, please do not come at me. I like both cats, dogs, and all animals there are. So I'm not very partial, but I have two cats, so I have to really say that I love cats like maybe a 0.01% more than
Okay.
I love. So
Yeah.
yeah. So essentially, when we talk about Ranchi Desktop, I'm not going to play the whole video because it's a lot of artwork in between my in between the actual demo. So you can see here how I've actually created beautiful artwork. But here in Ranchi Desktop. WebAssembly is not enabled by default because it's an experimental feature. So we are going to enable it, and uh, it'll restart after applying the changes. And once it does, um, what happens is that we're going to leverage the prepackaged application here. So if you can see here, I have created this beautiful animation which is now irritating me about how we are leveraging the spin framework here. And we've this manifest, everything is there on our documentation website. And essentially, we're just creating a deployment, and that deployment um, gets successfully created. And once you create it, you need to have associated services and networking. So we create that with the help of another manifest file. And once we do that, we just query the application to see if it actually works. Um, Spoiler alert, it does, because this is a demo that was pre-recorded and is up on YouTube. So there is no surprise here. But the thing here is to demonstrate that Ranch Desktop currently does support WebAssembly. But today's demo is not about that. It's about running SpinCube. Now, SpinCube, for those of you who are unaware, is donated to be a CNCF project. It's not yet one, as far as I know, and as far as I checked the PR last time around. So it was donated during KubeCon, during the last days or the second last days KubeCon keynote, and essentially it helps you run WebAssembly workloads on Kubernetes in a more efficient way. Because if you saw right now, we had to um, write the manifests ourselves. I copied them, that's another thing. But if you were to do it, if for your applications based in your organization, you would have to write your application, write, compile it, package it, do a bunch of other stuff, push it to the registry, create it, then create a manifest file to deploy the um, application itself, create services and networking to access it from outside if there's a requirement. And that's all a huge headache. That's not great developer experience, in my opinion. And I know that my opinion does not matter in the larger scheme of things, but it also, if you're taking individual opinions into account, it does. So uh, writing and doing stuff repeatedly for multiple applications doesn't really make sense when you can templatize stuff. So that's where Spin and SpinCube come in. So right now, I am actually going to switch over to my terminal, which let's hope everything actually works. So I'm going to be switching in between. Sorry, I just came onto my Google Drive and y'all are seeing an infinite screen. So I am going to actually install SpinCube Live from the docs. Again, I believe docs are the best source for any sort of information, and I might be biased. So I'm gonna first install SpinCube. Now, what you must know about SpinCube is that there are four major components. One of them is the SpinCube plugin, which is the CLI plugin for Spin. Then you have the container D shim Spin. Then you have the runtime class manager, and you also have the Spin operator. We'll get to those individual components and what they do in a really, really short amount of time. But essentially, to get all these to get SpinCube installed, we have to install all of these and cert manager for the SSL purpose. So I'm going to be installing all of that right now live. Hopefully nothing glitches. The large font, I know it's extremely large, but that's for me because I have grandma eyes, and this is for all those people who have grandma eyes like I do. So
No, I think it also shows
now
up
we are
well on the
installing.
stream, so you're good. Don't worry about
Yeah, because I normally cannot see when people write with like small, like typing out like small fonts, so I have to do this. um so we are installing the various components here. And right, so once this is done, we will have to check whether the cert manager plugin is up, because by default that is something that is never up. The cert manager webhook doesn't come up as fast as I type. I've been told that I speak and type at a very fast rate, so I should probably wait for things to come up. So we're going to check once again. So they're all running at this point, so we're safe to go ahead with the installation. And we're first going to install the spin operator here. And this is going to take like a couple of minutes. I'm saying couple of minutes to sort of set the expectation because it takes a little time compared to
Mhm.
the other ones. But once done, we are also gonna install the KWASM operator and then annotate it with the latest version. After that, we're gonna actually just deploy a Hello World app. Which we write again live, because apparently everything had to be done live according to me.
Hey,
So
it is called Live Code Tuesdays after all.
I
So
mean, again,
yeah.
sticking to the trying to stick to the theme, but also I'm just like really nervous when it is live streams because things go wrong all the time. So
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, so we've actually had a lot of fun in the past, sort of debugging code going wrong and realizing after 10 minutes that we have forgotten to build the code. As is the case,
as is the
all the
case,
code was fine. Yeah.
yeah, like the only fun part about seeing me debugging is I don't look like a human when I debug. I literally have my hair scrunched up and I'm almost, my face is never smiling. It's always in a grimace. People get scared to come near me when I debug. So,
Okay.
um, my colleagues never used to fancy me debugging because I never used to get up from that space when I was a sysadmin. So
Andrew was asking if you made the right sacrifices to the demo guides. I'm guessing it's gods. Yeah, demo gods.
I have tried. I have tried today, but I do not know. So we could be very well on our way to trouble. But let's see. I
Okay.
hope the demo gods are happy with my sacrifices. So we've installed the KWASM operator right now, and I'm going to annotate the node with the correct version. So right. So we've done all the steps. We have SpinCube deployed right now on the K3s cluster that comes packaged with Rancher Desktop. Now time for our Hello World application, which I'm gonna just spin up. And I know that Taylor Dolzal would be really proud of me for making that fun. So I'm just gonna take the simplest one that I think that is JavaScript, and I'm okay. So I'm giving this a very cute name
Oh,
because
nice.
so I'm just gonna go here. I think to the source. Yeah.
No, we just hit 100 plus viewers actually on the live stream, which is pretty cool. For folks joining in newly, at least let me know where you're streaming from, or at least watching our stream from. We typically get a fairly international audience, I think. So, yeah. Um, yeah, let us know in the comments. Divya, you're in luck. So, Nuno is eating chocolate on your name for the demo god. So, everything should go
Oh,
fine.
thank you, Dodo. I just hope that you get the same ones to Susakan as well because I'm not really like I do appreciate the demo gods taking that sacrifice, but I also would like some of that chocolate at this point.
Yeah.
Just letting you know that that would also be very appreciated. So I've just made the change. So if for those who did not notice, I'm just going to show you all again that I made this really small change. That is hello from the Fermion live stream. I did not say anything else. And we're now going to build our app. So we're just going to do a spin build. Actually, before spin build, we do an npm install, and I've learned that this is extremely essential because I forget to do it every time, and then it comes to bite me back. So now I build the application, and it's gonna take less than I don't know how many seconds, 53 milliseconds, to build the entire thing. We're getting our spin component here, and if you look at the target here, you should see a wasm module, right? So this is what is the thing that gets built in, and you can see the definition of oh sorry, I'm so sorry. I have no idea
Yeah,
why.
yeah.
So if you can see here, you can also see my email ID. Please do not email me. Just telling you, my email's a mess. But essentially, you can see that this the WASM module gets built in, and there's a bunch of stuff here that tells you how it gets built. And once we do this, we can actually just see if the application actually works, because it's interesting to see if it would work. So this is the first part. It's not the only thing. So, huh, right. So we've started the application on another tab. So I'm just gonna see. Ah, See, we got the application running without the container. So there is a win there, at least. And
Eat more chocolate, Nuno. It's working. Eat more chocolate.
for chocolates. So once that gets done, I think one of the other things that we're trying to display here is the fact that you can containerize it easily. And you can run it on Kubernetes easily. That's the whole premise of SpinCube, right? So what I'm going to do is push this, and before pushing it, I'm actually packaging it into a containerized image and pushing it. So spin registry push. Huh. Just gonna.
Shout out to ttl.sh. Extremely good for, especially for demos and short-lived
Yes,
OCI registries that you want to
absolutely.
work for. Yeah.
This. I'm using ttl.sh every time ever since I discovered it, because it's so simple, and essentially it allows you to push the content of um, your artifact, like your artifact in general, without authenticating. So right now I'm doing that. I'm pushing the 0.1.0 version of the live stream wasm component into the ttl.sh registry, and it gets pushed in a matter of seconds again. Once done, I'm now gonna see if we can create a manifest file, right? So, now this is right. Ta, ta, ta. I am. This is me being extremely slow at typing. So I've just exported this to a manifest one.yaml. Now I'm not going to exactly use kubectl to deploy it because I have spinkube to do that for me. But I'm just gonna open the sorry, but I'm just gonna open the manifest one.yaml to show you what it looks like. I should have probably actually cleared it before opening it. So yeah, so if you can see here, it's creating a spin app CRD, so that your spin operator, which is one of the components we talked about earlier, right, as part of SpinCube, the spin operator can pick up this spin apps custom resource definition and deploy it onto your K3s cluster. So as you can see here, there are two replicas and the image is there, and the container D shim spin is mentioned as the executor. You can change the replicas and stuff like that. So that's not a this thing. I'm just starting it with two replicas.
And that's a
But
that's a default also, right? Yeah.
yeah, that's a default. So
Yeah.
I'm just going with the defaults at this point because, like I said, I don't like to mess with the demo gods too much. My okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
From again. So what I'm going to do is use the spinkube deploy command to deploy this image, and essentially you can see that this thing that the deployment gets configured, and if you now see, the container is creating. Okay. Now, again, I am a very nervous person in general. Anybody who knows me knows that. So I am gonna check the workloads, and you can. Oh, it came up! Yay! I am surprised. Do not keep eating those chocolates,
Yeah.
please. It helps. So the application did come up, and we are going to port forward. Now, typically, I would have used uh, normal kubectl command, but Rancher Desktop honestly makes it more easy for me to do it with the forward command. So I'm just gonna like put an 8083 one here and just see if that works. So we got our
Nice.
application running. So this is how SpinCube works on Rancher Desktop. We got everything working, but one of the things that we've not really discussed it. What did we exactly do? Now, essentially, we spun up an app using the Spin framework. It was a basic JavaScript app, and it ran on the Wasm time runtime. Um, Essentially, that app is just a Wasm module. And as I said before, Wasm modules are really sandboxes that are like cut off from the outside world. So you need the WASI framework around it, and that's basically provided by the framework. And essentially, we queried the application after uh, deploying it and building it. So we got the response initially. With containerization, what we did is we packaged the application and its compiled assets into a Wasm component, and pushed it into the ttl.sh registry, which is by Liquid Reply, if I'm not mistaken. So I just pushed it there, and then again, similar to how you would deploy an application, I did create a manifest 1.yaml. I could have just applied that, but I created the whole application and associated services and networking by just using the spinkube deploy command. So there's a radical difference in the amount of time it actually took me to take the manifest and then do a kubectl apply command, wait for the containers to start up. There was the, I mean, if you go through the other video, you will see that there's a definite amount of time that I wait for before it actually comes up, and I fill it up with a lot of words. Here, you could see that, the application came up almost instantaneously. So with Wasm on Rancher Desktop, what we did was we wrote our application, we compiled it into a Wasm module, packaged it into an OCI artifact, and pushed it into a registry with Spin. And we ran it as a Wasm container with SpinQ inside the
Nice.
K3s cluster that came packaged. Uh, so how did that magic happen? I spoke about four components earlier, and those are the spin queue plugin, the spin operator, the container shim spin, and the runtime class manager. Now the docs explain it way better than I did, so I've directly borrowed it from there. But essentially, SpinQ plugin, you saw in action. You saw how easy it was to use that CLI command to actually convert your Spin application into a manifest file, into a Kubernetes manifest file. And the reason why we use it as a custom resource, why we deploy it as a custom resource definition, is because Kubernetes is extended that way. So we have an operator, a specific operator, spin operator known as the spin operator, to watch out for these custom resource definitions, to watch for any new ones, and to watch for changes made to the existing ones. Pick up those changes and or pick up the new app and schedule it and manage it on as custom resources on the K3s cluster. Now, once you schedule it, you obviously also want it to actually work, right? When you deploy stuff, you want it to work. It's not art. It cannot sit on your walls and look pretty. You have to have it working. So essentially, your containerd shim spin translates between your containerd and wasm runtime, because inherently Kubernetes um, does, like, the containerd runtime does not understand wasm, so that's shim is required to help translate that. And with the number of shims being developed, we also sort of introduced the runtime class manager, which is another operator that's used to sort of install and manage the various shims, along with applying all those uh, applying and managing the modifications of runtime classes. So those are like the four pillars of spinkube. And now comes the question, why would you use this? And more importantly, where would you use this? Because, like I said before, software, although it's a creative process, it can't be hung on walls. As of now, at least. And even if you hang it on walls, what would you do looking at it? So you need to use it somewhere. And honestly speaking, like I alluded to in the very first couple of slides, it truly depends where you're using spinkube and where you're using WebAssembly in general, right? So if you're considering running WebAssembly applications on Kubernetes without spinkube, like I showed you in the earlier, in the first demo, when you have to actually get an application up and running, you have to sort of go through the entire process of initializing Kubernetes, pulling the image, marking the image, starting up the container, loading the app, waiting for its initialization, waiting for the pod to be ready, waiting for the service to be ready. It's a whole process. But spinkube shined in that regard, because obviously, uh, initializing the cluster, it was already initialized, there was no problem. But pulling the image, loading wasm, everything was handled. We did not need to take care of a lot of stuff, and the developer experience was significantly better. And that's what spinkube actually aims to do with WebAssembly, running WebAssembly workloads on Kubernetes. Um, it directly executes wasm without uh, taking on the container overhead. Like, it takes on the container overhead, starting the container overhead, but you don't have to do that. This is because spin applications are distributed as OCI artifacts, and that means that they're shipped as, compiled apps along with their assets, without any system dependencies underlying them. um, so like I said again, it just contributes to better developer experience overall. And you saw again with spinkube plugin how it was easy to streamline the process of getting a Kubernetes YAML. Writing a Kubernetes YAML has been the bane of my existence ever since I started writing them.
Yeah, I think for a
And
lot of people, just YAML writing just YAML code is the bane of existence. Or like I know internally as well, a lot of people,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Like, uh, it was just like, I think now there'll be YAML programmers, like programmers who only know YAML, or coders who only know YAML, like YAML specialists or something like that, which is a great thing. Nothing against them, but essentially writing YAML files is a little boring nowadays. And if something can automate that for me, I'm all for it. And you saw again spin operator managing the entire process and the entire heavy lifting of getting that scheduled, and container shim spin actually taking on the overhead of translating between your runtimes. So it's not necessary that you need spinkube if you want to run wasm inside a container, because you can still take a wasm time, or any other runtime, run it inside a container, run an application on it, it will still run fine, I promise you. But honestly, do you want to really bundle your wasm runtime every single time when you publish a container image, when you do the whole process of shifting it to a different architecture? You want to do the whole process of compilation and build again. So if that is something you're really passionate about, you want to do more of that, go ahead, do it. I mean, there's nothing stopping you. But for the others, if you want to simplify the whole process of running WebAssembly and account for better developer experience, then I think SpinCube's the way ahead. And it's not just Rancher Desktop. It's you can use it on a lot of the Kubernetes distributions. I know that AKS is supported, even vanilla Kubernetes K3s as a standalone thing is supported. So it's not just Rancher Desktop. So you want to try it out, you can do that.
Yeah,
um,
I've just sent a link on the chat for list of compatible Kubernetes distros and for running the
yes.
spin operator specifically, which includes Amazon EKS, Azure AKS, Civo Kubernetes, and I think it's on their marketplace as well, DigitalOcean, GKE and stuff. So yeah, I agree with you there, Divya.
Yeah, so it's not just Rancher Desktop. Even Docker Desktop kind of supports this. I know that there's a documentation for that on the documentation website as well. So it's not just Rancher Desktop that supports it. But we're at the end of our presentation slash demo right now, and these are the focus areas. Specific to Rancher Desktop, again, not SpinCube. So uh, the major focus area is obviously a lot of bug fixes and improvements, but the upcoming release is going to feature official support for SpinCube. Right now, what I demoed was just the actual synergy of the two. It is not officially integrated, but it is actually going to be integrated in the upcoming release, which is 1.14. And there are also plans to incorporate more runtimes other than the wasm time slash spin integration that we have currently. Um, so yeah, and if you have any questions, answers, feedback, this is the way you can go through it. These are the resources that are there, and questions and answers I'll take now. Feedback, sort of, you can reserve them for the GitHub and the Slack channel that we have.
Yeah, looks like Nuno's also been writing some integrations for something. Nuno, I'm not even kidding about this. Do you want to join one of our live streams? We can talk about it. I think that would be super cool, and we can also eat chocolate on the live stream. But yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn, and we can set it up. I think it would be awesome as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would really like to watch that live stream where Nuno and you eat chocolates from Switzerland. That would be a very, very, very interesting live stream to watch.
I'll be wrapping local Dutch chocolate, maybe, but yeah, but
Yeah.
Switzerland chocolate also sounds good. Cool, very cool. Question for you, Divya, about a couple of things. So, with Rancher Desktop, it's completely open source. For people who might be interested in sort of being first-time contributors or being part of, that ecosystem, what advice do you have there, or how could they get started?
Oh, excellent question. So, first up, I think one of the first ways to get involved in the ecosystem is to join our Slack channel. Like I showed on the last slide, if you want me to put it up, I can do that again. But that's the best way to get involved in terms of getting involved with our ecosystem. This is up again. But we appreciate any kind of feedback. Like, I know that we have a lot of bugs, and we have a lot of issues that are left untriaged, but we're getting to each of them. And since we appreciate any feedback that comes through, either posting it on Slack or filing it as an issue on GitHub is very much appreciated. Even with docs, really, that Nuno and team work on, we're constantly in need of feedback as to whether our documentation is extremely accessible. That's because it's pretty much how people get introduced to an open source project, and I can confirm that if the docs are good, people will want to actually contribute to your project. So if we want feedback, and if you want to get more involved in the ecosystem, we would love to have you on our Slack, and for any further direction that you might want to sort of take with respect to the ecosystem, we'd love to have you ask questions on our Slack. But Slack
Awesome.
and GitHub are our two main avenues.
Okay, sounds good. I also have one more question for you, but before that, very quickly, the steps that were discussed today are available on the blog that is right now on screen, also on the documentation on both Rancher and SpinCube.
Yeah.
The second thing I sort of want to ask you, Divya, is, and you probably have to share your screen again, is can you take us through the Rancher desktop dashboard itself? Right, because I learned
Sure.
something new about the ability to port forward there, like a pleb. I was sitting and writing kubectl commands for port forwarding up until recently. So I think you're an expert there. So if you can maybe tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that dashboard there. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Let me just do that. Share screen. Again, we're going to go into the infinity screen version of it. But
Yeah.
essentially, this is how, when you install Rancher Desktop on Mac, it looks like this. So we have the container dashboard for independently maintained containers as well as others. But essentially, if you look at it, you can see that the containers that we created a while back, which is the default which is the sorry Fermion livestream one is running. There's a bunch of others here. So you can see that all of these containers are here. You can start, stop, pause any of them. So again, very much similar to how it works in Docker Desktop.
Docker desktop.
Uh,
Yeah.
and you again have these various things. But again, you can filter it out by namespace, and you can. But there's a thing here that all your containers have to be in the same state if you have to bulk stop or bulk start or bulk delete or stuff like that. Okay, so you cannot do that if the containers are not in the same state. You cannot stop or start them. Like if, say, one of these containers is up and the rest are down, you cannot do that whole start stop delete thing that I just saw, like in a bulk fashion. So that's not possible. Then port forwarding, you saw me do it. We can just click here. Like if you want to forward a port, you just click here and write a local port and end up forwarding it. It's just better experience really than writing kubectl. Anything to get out of writing.
Yeah. Also,
So
Nuno gives us an important notice that the namespaces that you mentioned are the container D namespaces, not the
yes,
Kubernetes ones. Okay, got it.
yes. So
Nice. Thanks,
then
Nuno.
there are, yeah, thank you so much. Then again, all the images that are present here in the container D namespaces. So you can see here all the images that we drew. So you can see all the images that you have pulled for a particular deployment, and it's spectacular that we've done this much. We have snapshots, which are again, it's not extremely new, but it's something that's relatively new. But I'm just gonna show you a bit. Um, so when you're creating a new snapshot, you cannot do anything else. But essentially, a snapshot of in Rancher Desktop is very similar to how you would create a VM snapshot. It essentially takes the configuration and everything else that is there in the present moment to actually create a image, and you can sort of manually take that image, sorry, manually take that image and restore Rancher Desktop to that original configuration if anything goes wrong. Very, very nifty feature in case things go wrong. And things often do go wrong when you're an admin. So that's one of the ways. So snapshots is one of those features. Then we have troubleshooting and diagnostics, which is pretty standard, but it's also very cool because you get to start from scratch how many ever times you want. You can have a fresh cluster, you can have a fresh Rancher Desktop as many times as you want. And I think I like this feature the best of all. So that's one. Uh, and diagnostics is basically any outstanding problems while starting up Rancher Desktop. If it turns out like if you are on a different Rancher Desktop context, or if any particular problems crop up when you are starting up Rancher Desktop as like the app itself, it flags up here. And Rancher Desktop extensions are again not new, but it was introduced last year. Nuno has a fantastic video about it, which we filmed at KubeCon last year. I remember that because I was behind the camera for the very first time. So I was very nervous that I was not doing it right. So essentially, extensions are pretty much like a catalog of applications that we keep updating. So we have a bunch of stuff here that you could potentially use when you are, uh, using containerized applications or cloud native applications. So you can see a bunch of them here. We keep updating this. Um, this is not like the exhaustive list, but one thing to note is that some of the extensions that are visible in the containerd version might not really be visible in the Docker or the Mobi version, because again, uh, we have like a separate catalog for each of them. Some of them overlap, but there are some differences in both of the container runtimes, the extensions that are there for both of the container runtimes. And you might not see some of them here, and you might not see some of the extensions that you see here when you're switching to the when you're switching to the container runtime, that's Docker. But before going to the cluster dashboard, what I want to actually look at is the preferences section, because I think again this is a very nifty one here. So we have like a lot of Kubernetes versions supported. You can switch between a lot of them, and by lot I mean a lot of them.
Okay.
It goes and you have the differences between containerd, Docker, and Mobi, that is also there. Then you can also change the memory that you assign to your virtual machine. So Rancher Desktop on Mac OS runs on a virtual machine, so you can change the amount of memory it consumes. I typically leave it normally at this level unless I'm running something really heavy like New Vector or Rancher and everything else that I want for my demo to run together. So I use that. We also have a bunch of stuff around volumes, network, and emulation. So this is all standard sysadmin stuff. So this is and last but not the least, the cluster dashboard is again something we released recently. So you can see here that a lot of the clustered resources are visible here, and I've just filtered by user namespaces. But if you filter by all namespaces, you can see a lot of stuff that comes up here. You can see all the deployments, you can see the status of all of these. If you want to go and see, edit the YAML, for example, if you want to edit the YAML here, you can do that. uh, Pretty
Nice.
cool stuff. Yeah. And you can also look at individual pods here that have come up. So if you have all these things here, and yeah, pretty much your standard stuff when it comes to, it's very similar to how the Rancher Manager dashboard looks, but also it's very cool to have it within the Rancher desktop, because when you're running a K3s cluster, or when you're provisioning a K3s cluster and you're packaging it with the image that you're providing, I think it really helps that you have this here along with all the information that's required. So yeah,
Awesome.
this is Rancher Desktop in a nutshell.
Awesome. Okay. So, yeah. So thanks for that demo, Divya. That was super concise because you covered like pretty much every feature of Rancher Desktop in like under 5 minutes, which is it's very impressive. And yeah, folks, if you're interested in like container management and Kubernetes on your desktop, well, let's check out Rancher Desktop, of course.
Yeah.
And and as Nuno says, that this might be one of the nicest features and less known, the built-in Rancher Manager dashboard. Right. So
Yeah.
it's so customized running cluster, not full featured. Awesome.
Full feature. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah.
All right. Sweet. Well, first off, thanks everyone for watching and following this demo of running SpinCube on Rancher Desktop. Divya, thank you so much for running this, of course, and for generally being a friend of Fermion as well. And
Hmm.
yeah, hope to see you at the next KubeCon. Uh,
I think
I'm
we're going
pretty
to
sure
be
we will.
before that for sure. So I will see you wherever we see you next. But I'm looking forward to our collaboration in the future because I'm pretty sure we have a long way to go.
Yes, looking forward to it. And thanks again, folks. Andrew, Nuno, Bunny, who else was there? Vamshi, and everyone else. Thanks for joining in. We'll be streaming next week at the same time as well. Haven't put up the schedule on YouTube, but I will be doing that very soon. So you'll have to just tune in and see what we are going to talk about. Anyway, thanks again, folks. Thanks, Divya.
Thank
And
you
yeah,
so
see you
much.
soon.
See
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.